Assignment 1, Part 1. The Story of the Jewish People, the Early Period. Introduction. In order to understand the worldwide Jewish community of today, we need to examine all sorts of questions, such as, why has the idea of Jewish community been so central to Jews for thousands of years? How has the idea of Jewish community changed over time? What caused the development of major Jewish communities and centres in different parts of the world at different times? For this assignment and the next two assignments, we will be following the unique story of the Jewish community through time, developing and adapting as it encounters new situations and difficult circumstances. Each assignment will deal with a different historical period. At various points in the story, you will come across guides, individual and community leaders who will offer glimpses into the lives of their communities. Many are real historical individuals who existed in a particular time and place. Others are type figures, anonymous individuals who will represent for us a certain kind of Jew. All of the quotations are fictional, but represent as closely as possible the real historical situation at that time and place. As you read through the materials, have in mind the question which you will answer for your assignment. Which change during this period do you think was the biggest change for how Jewish people lived their lives together and how they understood the concepts of community? Why? Beginning the story, local community or nation. Our story opens in the land of Canaan, Eretz Yisrael, where the first centre of the Hebrews, Israelites, they later became known as Jews, developed. We will enter into this world as it was 3,000 years ago. The land is a medium-sized, bustling state. It is ruled by King Solomon from his capital city of Jerusalem. We think of him today as a popular king, but he actually encountered a lot of opposition from his own people. One of the major points of controversy was over the issue of community. Let us meet our first guide, Yair, the tribal elder. He comes from the town of Tirzah in the large tribe of Manasseh. In present-day terms, the town lies north of Jerusalem and east of Netanya. He does not like the king, and his story will tell us why. He thinks the king is deliberately undermining the local communities and their leadership.
Shalom, I am Yair, one of the town's officials from Tirzah, and one of the elders of the council of the tribe of Manasseh. Tirzah is a beautiful town, lying in a mountainous area that is not so easy to access. We are very proud of our traditions here, and that is why so many of us are angry at King Solomon. It is he, following in the footsteps of his father David, who is trying to take away our traditions as independent communities, all for the sake of building up his own position as king. I'm not against the idea of a king, although sometimes I wish that we didn't have one. I understand why we needed to appoint a king. Our society of tribes could not cope with the Philistines, who had been occupying our areas for years. We had to do something, and the natural decision was to choose a king. We did, and although it took a few years, we managed to destroy the Philistines in the end, or at least to defeat them to the point where they would never again threaten us. No, the idea of kingship in itself is not the problem. That was necessary. The problem is that when we choose a king, this was in the time of my grandfather, we planned a very specific type of society. Not so different from the society we had lived in up to then. Our society is based on the tribe. All of us belong to different tribes, and each tribal community has a set structure. This has been going on since we settled the land centuries ago. The whole idea of the tribe is that it is independent. Each tribe consists of many different households, Batei Av, united into clans that we call mishpachot. According to tradition, each tribe originates from one of the sons of our forefather Jacob. The important thing to understand is that the tribes have their own leadership. As far back as we can remember, there have always been two types of leader, elders and priests. Elders, like me, are the heads of the more important clans. They sit in the tribal council running day-to-day affairs and giving judgments in disputes. People have always known where to find us when they need us. We sit in the entrances to the main towns of the tribal area. When you want justice, you come to us. We're in charge, or at least we used to be. The other leaders, the priests, are responsible for the ritual aspects of life. They can always be found in the ritual centre of the tribes, usually on the tops of hills or by streams or impressive trees, where they build their altars and people bring their offerings. That's the way our society always worked. The truth is that our tribe is a little different. We inhabit a large area, and of all the tribes you are the only one that has land on both sides of the Jordan. It means we've had to adjust our leadership organisation a little, but the principle remains the same. Tribes are independent and organise themselves. Of course, tribes do cooperate. We have come together several times when dealing with problems that many of us were facing. We have a lot in common. In some distant way we are all related, and we do worship the same God. So from one point of view we are all parts of the whole. However, we have always been proud of the things that make each tribe its own community. Saul, the first king, had largely respected our traditions. For example, he had summoned our men to join his army whenever there was a battle to be fought, but it was ultimately our decision to answer his call. Maybe it's just that he wasn't strong enough to establish a more centralized model of kingship. He didn't build a fancy capital city, instead he used one of his own tribal centers as a royal city. And then came David and Solomon, who started to change everything. The fancy capital was David's thing. He came in with a completely different idea of how a king ought to run a country. He said that we needed to see ourselves as part of a nation, and a nation needed a capital city that was above all the tribes. It needed royal palaces, fortresses, and a whole royal army. Solomon is even worse. He built that massive royal temple in Jerusalem, undermining the importance of our local shrines and altars. He also made the whole population come to work on the royal building projects. We have no say in it. I'm telling you, our tribal leadership has been reduced to the level of a local leadership with very limited power. It's all wrong. If something doesn't change soon, I tell you there's going to be a revolution.
In response, King Solomon's press office released the following statement.
We totally reject the accusations of Yair of Tirzah. It is not true that the king is trying to undermine the local leadership. Local leadership actually plays an important part in the royal plans, but Yair's opinions are a problem that we are encountering in many parts of the kingdom. People like Yair are incapable of understanding the great royal vision that started with King David. We see a national kingdom and a national destiny. We see a national community. All they can see is their own local interests. Who would want to remain in the past, a past of local tribal rivalries and petty concerns? The future demands large-scale thinking. The future is about the nation, not the local communities. The king has respect for local traditions and has no intention of destroying them. He has not dismantled the councils of tribal elders, although they must now answer to the national governmental structure. Just because he has inaugurated a new national temple in Jerusalem does not mean that he has cancelled out the local shrines and altars with their own traditions of sacrifice. The king's wisdom is famous throughout the world. Would he be so stupid as to underestimate the importance of local tradition? Of course not, but neither would he be so stupid as to underestimate the importance of progress.
Finally, let us hear from two priestly brothers, Nadav and Itamar. Nadav continues to work at his family's small shrine in the hills of the tribe of Benjamin, north of Jerusalem. Itamar recently left his brother and went to work in the great temple in Jerusalem. Nadav speaks first.
Our family has been officiating at the same shrine for generations. It is our calling in life. People need a priest. We know these people. We have lived among them and we have learned to know their needs. We advise them in all sorts of aspects of life. We help them. We teach their children. We offer cures for their illnesses. And above all, we provide a link with God. People come to offer sacrifices at our altar as a way of communicating with God. We are central to the life of the community. This is what I said to Itamar before he left for Jerusalem. Jerusalem is not a community with roots or a tradition. It has only been in our hands for about a generation. Why go for the glitter of the great royal temple? It is a symbol, I understand, but it offers little contact with local people. If you serve there, you are a part of a royal showpiece, but cut off from real life.
Itamar disagrees.
I respect Nadav and his commitment to the local community, but I wish he could understand that the Temple of Solomon is a new stage in the worship of God. Some people say that Solomon built it only for his own personal glory. Even if this was the case, the temple is now larger than Solomon's original plans for it. It is a witness to the glory of God. People who see it might initially think of Solomon, his riches, his abilities, but soon enough they'll realize that they're thinking of God. The temple is glorious. How glorious must God be? It's true that I have less personal contact with the people on an individual level, but if that's the price for making the name of God even more glorious, so be it. I know that our family has officiated at the local shrine forever, and that it was the centre of people's lives. But now, since the temple was built in Jerusalem, the local shrine somehow looks small and unimpressive. Many people prefer to come to Jerusalem. Nadav is sad, I understand, but things have changed.
Here we have seen a major tension which transformed the early Jewish concept of community. The shift from a series of linked local communities into a national structure which stood above all of the local communities and took away considerably from their individual power. Times would change and major events would occur. For example, the revolution against Solomon that Yair predicted did break out, but only after Solomon's death and during his son Rehoboam's rule. The revolution after Solomon's death led to a split and the creation of two states, Israel in the north, Judah in the south. But the nature of society and community changed very little. The two parallel states were both centralized states, with a king that ruled over smaller tribal units. That's the end of Assignment 1, Part 1. The next YouTube clip will take you through the second part of Assignment 1, and it will start with the section A Community Abroad, Babylon.